This is Laura Maloof Miller. I'm going to be doing the introductory and the exit slides today for our November Wellness webinar. Just a couple housekeeping items. If you would like to change your audio settings, you can see on the slide here. If you would change, you're doing computer and you'd like to do phone, you can change your audio. As you always remember, we mute everybody upon entry. So if you do have any technical difficulties or need to ask us a question or so, please use the chat function. You're going to find that on your screen. Sometimes it's at the top, sometimes at the bottom. So just click on that little bubble with the chat, and then you can chat to the hosts and the panelists today. If you happen to be attending this webinar in a conference room, or you used a single webinar access with your team, please chat that number of attendees to Kristen so that we can get a more accurate number on attendance. I'm going to skip our disclaimer because John Muir Health is our presenter today, Claudia, and they have their own disclaimer. So we are so grateful to have Claudia with us today to be talking about healthy gut, healthy you. All right, Claudia, go ahead.
Great. Thank you for having me again. Welcome, everyone. As always, this is a presentation. It's not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So always seek the advice of your physician before making any changes to your diet or health routine. Next. So just a quick view of the gut, and as you can see here, all of the areas that we know about currently, how our intestines play a role in our overall health and all throughout the body. And if you don't know, our gut really starts at where food enters and goes all the way down to where food exits. And it's an ever-evolving learning process. So we are still learning so much about the entire intestinal tract. And so hopefully today I will give you some good advice and maybe debunk some myths that are out there and answer some questions that you may have about our GI system. So in the intestines, we have the microbiome. That's kind of a big buzzword right now. And what we want to do is keep that microbiome as healthy as possible. And it consists of bacteria and other microbes that are in the GI tract or the gut, and it helps us digest food. It's possibly highly likely it's connected to our immune system and supports our immune system, our cardiovascular system, so our heart health, as well as brain health, and many other benefits. The gut microbiome affects the body as soon as we're born, from birth on throughout our entire life by controlling the digestion of food, again, helping out with the immune system, the central nervous system, and other bodily processes. Next. So what is the gut microbiome? The term gut microbiome refers to microorganisms that are living in our intestines. So each person has about 200 different species of bacteria, viruses, and fungi in their digestive tract. Some microorganisms are harmful to our health, but many are incredibly beneficial and even necessary for a healthy body, as you saw in that previous slide where they're tied to. And as you can see on that third bullet point, it's again, the healthy gut microbiome, of course, helps with digestion and metabolism. It can help prime the immune system. It helps with producing vitamins, processing vitamins. It can degrade xenobiotics, which are foreign substances to the body that we don't want. Perhaps it's water pollutants, so it helps get rid of that. resist colonization by other pathogens, and it produces energy for the gut wall from undigested food, and that's in the form of short chain fatty acids. And you want to have a healthy gut wall, so the intestinal lining, and that helps, keep the good bugs in and the bad bugs out. Next. So what influences the gut microbiome? Like I said earlier, it starts really from birth on, and we're even seeing some even earlier than that. So while in utero, just the building of our gut microbiome. So mode of infant delivery, whether you were born via C-section or vaginally, how you were fed, all throughout our aging process, whether or not you're someone who has had to use antibiotics for long periods of time, that can reduce the diversity of your microbiome. What sort of diet you've been eating for most of your life or certain periods of your life, where you grew up, what you had access to or didn't have access to. Again, medications like antibiotics, and acids. Stress, of course, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Stress can affect so many parts of our health and our body. So of course it has an impact on our gut microbiome. This can be, the brain and gut connection. We could see that quite early on if we were nervous before a test or nervous before a turkey trot, a run. We know that stress can lead us running into the bathroom. So there is definitely a connection there. Next. So what are 7 things that you can do for your gut health? So I thought I would kind of start with this, and then we're going to go into some more details about pre and postbiotics as well. So number 1, I just talked about stress a little bit, but trying to lower your stress level. I know that there's no easy answer for this, but finding ways to improve your stress on a regular basis is helpful, not only for your microbiome, but for so many other parts of your health and staying healthy. We know that chronic high levels of stress can be really hard on the whole body, including your gut. So again, finding something, is it walking? Is it meditating? Spending more time with friends, laughing, doing yoga, whatever it may be, including that into your life. And if you've heard any of my talks before, stress is always, it's, interesting. You think I will just be talking about nutrition and food, but I talk about a lot of these 7 items here, or at least 6 of them, many times throughout all my various talks, no matter what hat I'm wearing. Number 3, eating slowly. So whether your own parent told you this, or you're now saying this to your own children, or trying to remind yourself to slow down when you're eating, chewing your food thoroughly and eating your meals more slowly may help, relieve some gastric or digestive discomfort, and therefore keep maintaining that healthy gut. It's very important. I always remind patients, depending on what I'm seeing them for, but if they are having a tough time digesting food or with bloating, this might be one of the places we start first, because digestion starts in the mouth. So just slowing down and chewing really thoroughly and giving your body, breaking down that food a little bit before it, gets down past the esophagus and into the stomach and into the intestines. And eating slower also just makes us feel fuller faster. Well, not faster, feel fuller. We actually notice the fullness more when we slow down than if we just eat really quickly at our desk or at night, standing up in the kitchen. It's much better to sit down and eat slowly. So hopefully that will help. And just remember, chew thoroughly as well. Number 4, staying hydrated. So drinking plenty of water on a regular basis. may be linked to increased diversity of bacteria in the gut. So all those little microbes need hydration as well. And you know that this helps move fiber and food through the whole GI tract, as well as keeping all of our cells healthy and keeping ourselves hydrated. So again, it's really important for so many things, but we also see it tied to having a healthy gut. Number 5, checking for food intolerances. So when I'm working with people and they come in and perhaps they have symptoms of bloating, abdominal pain, diarrhea, gas, nausea, even fatigue and acid reflux, we may do a recall and really try and narrow down. Perhaps it is a food causing some of these problems. This can be a long, tedious task. I may ask my patients to keep diaries. I never want people to eliminate entire food groups or multiple foods at a time. We usually do one or, a small handful at a time so that we can narrow it down more quickly. But that might play a role in what's happening with your gut. And by eliminating some of these common trigger foods, we see how your symptoms might improve. So you may see a positive change in your digestive health. It's not always the answer, but it's one of the, the hypotheses that we can look at. Number 6, changing your diet. So whether or not we're decreasing some of these food intolerances, or if it's just looking at your overall diet, perhaps we need to reduce the amount of processed, high added sugars, high fat foods that you eat. This also can lead to a healthier gut and better gut health, which as we go on in our talk, you will see that the foods that are recommended to keep that gut healthy are very healthy foods. And then whether or not you want to take a pre, a pro, or a postbiotic, that's kind of a newer term, which I'll explain in a little bit. Research is ongoing, so we don't know all the answers yet. But for some, adding a prebiotic or a probiotic supplement to their diet may help improve the gut health. So that's what we're going to look at next. So I thought I would start with probiotics. Probiotics are the more well-known of the 3. And what are they? So probiotics are live microorganisms that when they're administered in the adequate amounts, they provide a health benefit to the host. So we are the host. And research on probiotics goes way back to the early 1900s. When they saw the benefits, even in enhancing longevity in humans with lactic acid producing bacteria. So that's LAB strains when people were making and eating their own yogurt or eating yogurt. The most widely used LAB strains with these probiotic effects, and I always have a hard time pronouncing these, but Bifidobacterium, Enterococcus, and Lactobacillus. These are the ones that you will see most often when you are looking at foods that contain live probiotics. Next. So for instance, this morning I was looking at my Trader Joe's yogurt, and even though it's not stamped on the front of the yogurt or on the top of the yogurt, you can just look at the ingredient lists and it will say live active cultures. And then in parentheses, it listed actually all 3 of those. And I believe they're listed in order of the amount that is in the yogurt. But those are usually the top ones that you will find in yogurts and other probiotic foods. So does evidence exist? We have some evidence, actually quite a bit of evidence that it exists that probiotics can help reduce inflammation, oxidative stress. That next bullet point, really important. So reinforce the intestinal barrier integrity. So keeping those intestinal walls nice and strong. We also see it helps modulate immune function, especially for folks who have known GI diseases or issues, like inflammatory bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, and there's even some research out there for infants with colic. Probiotics are also helpful with synthesizing certain vitamins. So the bifidobacteria are specifically associated with improved health and helping the body inhibit those bad bacterias, helps the body with, again, digestion, because that's where we find those probiotics are in that microbiome. So they're helping release these digestive enzymes to break down the food. And helping when people are taking extra probiotics, especially when they've been on antibiotic therapy for a while, it's helping to restore not only the number of good microbes, but the diversity of microbes within, our microbiome. So again, those are the top two plus the other, but the bifido and the lactobacilli, those are, that we know of at this time, the healthier microbial compositions that we look for when we're looking at the foods that contain the live probiotics, or maybe a product that we want to buy, a supplement. Next. So, do we all need to supplement probiotics? Not necessarily. So we don't have evidence that it's beneficial in healthy individuals. Not yet. We don't know that. Again, this is all evolving research. A lot of people like to take them, but there's other ways to get those probiotics without buying a supplement over the counter. Where we do see the importance of supplementing with probiotics, and usually these are prescribed probiotics for someone who might be hospitalized with C. diff, which is a really horrible infection that can cause quite severe diarrhea, the inflammatory bowel diseases, ulcerative colitis, and there's evolving, up and coming research that suggests supplementing with probiotics can help the immune system as well. So we saw a lot of uptick in the purchasing of probiotics, especially in early and middle 2020 when COVID was rampant. The regulation is very limited. So again, like with most supplements, the FDA does not regulate. So you don't really know what you're getting. So trying to find a good reputable source. If you were someone who needed a prescription strength probiotics, those are regulated by the FDA. But the things that you find at CVS, Target, they are not. I do have a great resource at the end of the talk. Hopefully I'll have time to get to it, that you can click on and kind of look at what your symptoms might be, and then it'll tell you which probiotics will be best that we know of at this time for those certain symptoms. Because probiotics are not a one size fits all and must be ideally targeted to what the issue is. And if I do take over the counter, probiotic powders or capsules, how do I know they're getting where they need to go? We don't really know that. We're hoping they get to where we want them and they're being processed the way we want them, but the results are mixed. So a lot of times we'll find higher bacteria in the stool when we are studying people taking supplements, and the fact that they're not getting processed in the intestines. And we see this a lot with other supplements as well. Sometimes just large amounts of nutrients, whether it's vitamins, minerals, or probiotics being supplement is just too much for the body. So then it will get excreted in the stool or the urine. Is food better than supplementing? You're asking a dietitian. So a dietitian is always going to say yes. Trying to get what you're looking for through the food first is always ideal because it's in its more natural state and the body knows what to do with it. So we do know just by increasing some of these foods in our diet, that will lead to greater bacterial diversity. So just more diverse microbiome and healthier, happier microbiome. And that's what we want. Next. So where can I find probiotics? A lot of this is probably familiar to you, but we're looking for fermented vegetables and fruit, for instance, sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, beets, and carrots. As long as they're fermented, or pickled, that's what we're looking for. Dairy products, so kefir. I don't never know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You can find this at all grocery stores now, in the dairy aisle. They even have vegan kefir, yogurts, even some vegan yogurts. For those, you want to look and make sure that they have those, what did I say? How do they list it? The live active cultures in the ingredient list or on the container somewhere. Proteins, natto, I had to look this one up. I was unfamiliar with that, but it's fermented soybeans. It's a Japanese dish, and it kind of looks like a sticky pudding. That is fermented, so that contains probiotics, as well as tempeh. That's a little more common here. Tempeh is also fermented soybeans in like a cake form. The thing with tempeh is most of the time when it's served, it's been baked or fried or cooked, and that actually denatures the probiotics. So it's very rich in protein and fiber, calcium and iron. So it's a very healthy food. But from what I read, it's like just not heating it too high, the temperature, like not above 120 degrees. So it's an option. You can have it. You may not be getting all of the probiotics out of it. And then beverages, kombucha has been very popular these last few years. You can find it at all the grocery stores, even gas stations. There's kefir water, beet kvass. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that's a fermented probiotic drink that's made from beets, as well as fermented condiments. So the key here is that it must contain live and active cultures, and it will usually say that on the product itself. And ideally, don't cook it or don't overheat it. And once you bring it home, or when you buy it from the store, it should be refrigerated. That's what's going to keep it alive. And I think I saw a quick note from the chat asking about the veggies and fruits. And when we're talking about probiotics, they need to be fermented vegetables and fruits. That's the whole process of creating probiotics. But their fruits and veggies in their other state are really important when it comes to prebiotics, which I'm going to talk about next. So there we go. What are prebiotics? So prebiotics are food for your probiotics. So these probiotics that live within our microbiome, normally, naturally, when we have a good, healthy microbiome, they need food to survive. And they kind of do their own fermentation process within the gut. And that helps break down the food and produce, produce little byproducts that help with the whole metabolism in human body. So prebiotics, they are a substrate that is selectively utilized by the host, which is what we are, microorganisms. So our microbiome that creates a health benefit. So that fermentation results in specific changes in the composition and or activity of the microbiome or the microbiota, all those little bugs. So when it comes to prebiotics, this is where having that nice, healthy, regular eating pattern comes into play. So prebiotics are the types of fiber that we find in vegetables, fruits, beans. Okay, we cannot digest these types of fiber, but that good bacteria in our gut digests them. And that's what keeps our probiotics happy and healthy. I hope that makes sense. Next. a lot of pre and pro. So the benefit of those prebiotics, it's going to increase the proportion of those good, healthy bacteria, those probiotics there that we want. It helps, as we know, fiber is so important when it comes to regularity. So it can increase the bulk and the frequency of our bowel movements. That process of fermentation increases the happy bacteria, and just that water kind of pulls everything together and helps move that stool through the system. So it may even improve transit time. So I have some patients that I work with that have really slow digestion, and that might be part of the cause that they feel full or they feel bloated. So by just making some of these tweaks in their diet and hydration, we can help get that moving more regularly and provide more comfort. So again, it'll help reduce some symptoms of GI discomfort. This one specific type of fiber, prebiotic fiber, this inulin type fructan, it is the most studied. What we find when people eat these types of fibers more regularly, they stay a little fuller longer, so it reduces appetite and improves glucose tolerance, meaning your post-meal, your after-meal glucose rise does not go up as high. So again, these are just benefits of fiber. And those are some examples of this inulin type fructan. So artichoke, asparagus, chicory roots, onions. The food industry, of course, jumps in it, and they're now putting that type of fiber or adding it to a lot of functional foods like protein bars, protein powders. You may see that on the container. And of course, a positive effect on colon cancer risk and decreasing. So anytime we're increasing fiber and increasing movement through the GI tract, getting things to move at a healthy rate through there, cleaning it out, all those things help keep colon cancer risk low. Next. So here's more sources of prebiotics. So again, if one thing you can do, one of those 7 things is by, taking a look at your diet and really increasing the color and the fiber. It has so many other benefits besides a healthy gut, but these are just some of the richer sources. So asparagus, dandelion greens, eggplant, endive, radicchio, garlic, leeks, onion, jicama. So the, garlics and onions for a lot of people, and when I'm teaching people to cook who maybe haven't been cooking much in their lives, it's always kind of starting with the garlic and onion saute. So just kind of really bring those things on board and use them regularly. Those are the fruits that are really high in the fibers that we're looking for, very healthy fruits, healthy fat, avocado, those dairy products, and these wonderful starches. So beans, legumes, peas, oats, wheat, barley, cooked and cooled potatoes. So I did not really look into that. I'm not sure why they need to be cooled, but again, just having that big variety in our diet. Next. So I'm not sure if anyone's heard the term symbiotics. This is a newer term. Again, we're looking at it's a mixture of pro and prebiotics that just improves the microbiome. It's again something, our wonderful scientists see the benefit of providing these. Perhaps I have a patient who just doesn't get enough fruits and vegetables and whole grains in their diet. So this might be something that they want to take. These are the health benefits that are claimed by getting more symbiotics. So the pre and probiotics on board, and also maybe prescribed for someone with severe constipation. I have not seen, I'm also a diabetes educator. I have not seen much research supporting that it'll bring down high fasting blood sugar levels, but it's something people can try. and also reducing the risk of post-op infection or sepsis, so after surgery. So you may start to hear more about symbiotics or recommendations from doctors, depending on what's going on. But again, first and foremost, I'm always encouraging people to take a look at their overall diet and let's see where we can bring things on naturally before we turn to supplements. Next. And postbiotics. So this is a term, a newer term. It was new to me when I started diving into this. Postbiotics are non-living metabolites and compounds that are produced by microorganisms like yeast during the fermentation process. So it is kind of the end result in the microbiome. When you have the healthy bacteria, your probiotics, and they're being fed the prebiotics, they make other things that help maintain, the lining of that intestinal wall, that help with immune function, that help with digestion. Some of these postbiotics might be short chain fatty acids that are produced, when fiber gets fermented in the colon. So that's the SCFA, which that in turn acts as a source of energy or fuel for the cells that line the colon. So it's kind of just this constant cycle that's going on in there. And so you can see when things get thrown off, how it can affect many, many parts of the healthy GI tract and all of that it affects. So this is also a new area, postbiotics, that you'll be able to, well, I believe they are available already to be purchased if needed. But again, I think this would be something that may be recommended from a gastroenterologist, or if you do some research and just find that you don't like certain foods that have been recommended today, it might be something you consider. Next. So I always like to look at where can we fit some of these foods in on a regular basis. A lot of people like to do smoothies in the morning. It's an easy way, to maybe add kefir water instead of whatever milk or non-dairy milk you've been using, and then add some of those wonderful fruits to it as well, or a yogurt that contains the lactobacillus, etc. Having a yogurt parfait in the morning. So instead of just grabbing a yogurt and run, you're going to be hungry in a couple hours. Let's add some of these other healthy foods to it. Or this is pretty extravagant, but perhaps a kimchi and sauerkraut omelet. I've never tried that, but it might be something to consider maybe on the weekends. But if I am making a veggie omelet, onions and garlic are usually always involved. So just look and see where you can, add these items. Next. And these are just more ideas for lunch and dinner. So if you have, leftover stir fry, you can buy kimchi in the refrigerator section. Maybe just keep it in your fridge and add it to salads or to the stir fry. Once it's, cooked and ready to eat, just add it to your plate or your bowl. Play around with the tempeh a little bit. Or sauerkraut, make some new dishes. It doesn't have to be served traditionally. There's a little probiotic taco, or adding things to your salad or whatever your bowl is that you make in the evening. So just try and find ways where you can include these items more often. Next. So what about the rest of our diet? How does this come about? And how does it affect our gut? So next. So talking about fat, we definitely need fat in our diet. It helps with absorbing certain fat-soluble vitamins, but getting too much fat will actually provide or induce unfavorable changes to the microbiome. So trying to avoid these high-fat extremely high fat diets, like keto, for instance. We saw people following keto for a long time. They just have a reduced flora, like the diversity of that microbiome, and just a reduced amount. So not very favorable. Following a lower or moderate fat diet is more favorable. So when we look at people who just have a moderate fat diet, we see that they produce more of the healthy bacteria, keep the bacteria happy, healthy. And it's the type of fat. So trying to get more of those unsaturated fats. So when I'm working with people who are trying to lose weight and they're, decreasing carbs or whatever they may doing, I want them to increase these heart healthy fats like the avocado, nuts and seeds, olive oil, canola oil. These are all unsaturated fats, so they're very heart healthy, brain healthy, and they've been associated with having more of that good bacteria, like lactobacillus or bifidobacteria. And of course, vegetarian diets, plant-based diets, they're kind of naturally lower in fat and they're using more of those unsaturated fats. So we also find that they have a higher bacterial diversity. So that gut flora is, it's flourishing and it's very diverse. And that's what we're looking for. Next. And when it comes to carbohydrates and fiber, once again, trying to get most of our starches from whole grains. They promote beneficial bacterial growth. They're high in fiber naturally. So you'll see more production of those short chain fatty acids. Remember, that's the byproduct when everything within the microbiome is working properly. We see when folks might be on some of these more extreme diets where they've really slashed their carbohydrate intake down, where they're not eating very many carbs or very much fiber at all, that they have lower levels of those short chain fatty acids and just not the bacterial number that we look for within a healthy gut flora. So we also are this is that last bullet point, that when we see more of these short chain fatty acids, again, those are produced when fiber gets fermented in the gut, especially from whole grains, that this helps us feel more satiated. So we're going to feel fuller sooner, and it's going to last a little bit longer. And that's always what a lot of folks are looking for, especially if they're wanting to take off a little weight. Next. And when it comes to protein, really high animal protein-based diets tend not to be so great for our gut flora. We see lower levels of that carbohydrate fermentation. We also know that when we look at certain populations, there's a group, Seventh-day Adventists. They are primarily vegetarian. They've been studied for a long time. We see that they have less incidence of E. coli and enterobacteria. So these are some bad bacteria that cause a lot of GI distress. And so we look at that and chalk it up to their higher fruit and vegetable intake, as well as, they're not eating any meats or animal protein. And just as a reminder, the WHO, World Health Organization, has come out with recommendations when it comes to processed meats, and how they can be carcinogenic to humans when they're consumed often, as well as red meat. So just trying to eat less processed meats and cutting down on your red meat consumption as well. It doesn't mean you have to totally exclude it, but just cutting back. Also carcinogenic, which means it can cause cancer. It's how the meat is cooked, and when I'm talking about processed meats, that's salting, curing, fermenting of the meat, smoking, etc. And when I talk about red meat, it's not just beef, it's veal, pork, lamb, mutton, horse, goat as well. Next. So other dietary factors, just quickly, because I think we're getting close to the end here. Polyphenols. These are a group of biologically beneficial compounds with anti-inflammatory and antioxidant capabilities, and you can find them naturally in a wide variety of foods of plant or origins. So we see them in tea. Coffee contains polyphenols, that's black coffee, red wine, for instance, but also a big source of food as well. Polyphenols can be found in rosemary, thyme, clove, peppermint, ginger, all sorts of berries, vegetables, legumes. So a lot of things that I've been talking about already. And these can be quite beneficial and stimulate more of those short chain fatty acids by the gut bacteria. So again, keeping that whole process of keeping the gut flora happy and keeping those intestinal walls happy. Now, what to look out for a little bit. We are seeing some research when people are consuming too many artificial sweeteners. So again, an excessive intake, perhaps they're drinking, 6 diet sodas a day and then using artificial sweeteners in their coffee drinks, and then maybe some sugar-free, gums or candies. So we're talking a lot of intake can have a poor effect on the gut microbiome. And I would also say, which I forgot to add here, too much added sugars as well. So not only too many artificial sweeteners, but also too many added sugars. Next. So the bottom line, without trying, I hope that wasn't too complicating. I get a little complicated, going between pre, pro, and post, and all of these different biotics and what exactly is the microbiome. But what we do know at the end of the day is by eating a diverse diet is really important. And it's what you do on a regular basis. So your overall eating pattern. If it looks, if half of your plate can be colorful most of the time, that is going to help support a healthy and diversified microbiome. So think of all of the nutrients, fiber you're getting from those fruits and vegetables. Focus on fiber. This is probably the number one nutrient that is underconsumed in America. Most Americans do not get the 25 to 38 grams of fiber a day. So again, half that plate, fruits and vegetables. When you're choosing starchy foods, carbohydrates, try and choose whole grain more often, including more beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds in your diet, including more plant-based foods. So we talked about a lot about that. Avoiding high fat, especially high animal fat or high animal protein diets. Reduce your intake of artificial sweeteners and added sugars, because again, taking in too many of those can alter your microbiome. And lastly, and I didn't talk about this too much, but including regular physical activity. So we know how important exercise is for mood and overall health. But there was a recent study where they had some non-exercisers that gradually increased their physical activity to an hour of vigorous exercise 3 times a week. This increased activity was associated with a bump in the number of beneficial gut bacteria that produce those short-chain fatty acids. Again, those are the compounds that help keep the colon healthy, reduce inflammation, improve insulin resistance. When the researchers measured these participants' gut microbes 6 weeks after they stopped exercise, their microbiome returned to the original composition. So all the healthy flora kind of went down when the exercise was stopped. So just another promotion of getting us to move more as well. And again, that exercise can help us decrease stress, which will also support a healthy gut. Next, because I think we're here at the end. So I always want to include just my favorite nutrition resources. You can find, these are all my favorites: eatright.org, myplate.gov, heart.org, which is the American Heart Association. They all have wonderful, just general nutrition guidelines, but also really great information on a healthy gut, healthy microbiome, as well as the NIH fact sheets. If you ever are curious about taking a supplement, I always encourage folks to go there, where you can read about the supplement itself, how much you need, where you can get it from food, and if you should still go ahead and buy a supplement and what to look for. Next. This was the probiotic guide that I wanted to talk to you about. I believe you'll all receive a copy of these slides. Here you can click on this, and then it breaks it up into whether you're an adult or a child, male or female. You can look for the symptoms that you're having, and then it will recommend specific probiotics that will support and help with, you know, whatever GI issue you may be having. And as far as books go, you know, there's a lot of wacky stuff out there and on the internet, but I did find, and I have actually listened to this dietitian at some seminars that we go to, and she is probably one of the best GI gastroenterologists or GI dietitians, and she's wrote some really helpful books that I've recommended and read to a lot of my patients, depending on what their issues are. So The Bloated Belly Whisperer, and a book, Regular, which is really for folks with any sort of bowel irregularity. So just a couple recommendations. And that's it. I don't know, these are all my references. I don't know if I have time to answer any of the questions in the chat, but thank you for attending.
That was great, Claudia. Thank you so much. For those folks who need to exit the webinar, feel free to do that. I'm just going to cover the last couple of slides on wellness programs that we have for HealthNet members, as we always do at the end of every webinar. So yes, you will all be receiving a copy of the slide deck, as well as the link to the recording for everybody who registered, whether you could attend or not. So these are our wellness programs. Of course, our HealthNet members can find all of this information by logging into healthnet.com. And again, we have health coaches. So if diet is an area that you would like some improvement on or some help with, feel free to reach out to a health coach as well. And if you had any issues in the middle of the night, HealthNet members can, of course, call our nurse advice line 24/7 to speak to a live nurse for some help with that. And then, of course, our members receive discounts on a variety of products and services. And then next month, December, we've got some great online health challenges. These are open to everybody. So as we are in the holiday season already, Winter Wellness, it's a 90-day Green Day challenge. So you'll be tracking your health habits. Snuggle Up is the sleep challenge. As we're hitting the holidays, it's sometimes hard to get enough sleep. Relax and Recharge is our stress management challenge for the month of December. Also, Rethink Your Drink. So taking a look at what drinks you may be having over the holiday season and thinking about some lower calorie options. And then Winter Walking is the 90-day step challenge that starts in December and goes all the way through the end of February. Again, these are open to everybody. Next month, we will be doing Healthy Habits for Life. The date is in red because it's a week earlier due to the holidays. So you'll be receiving an invitation to that. So it's December 13th, the same time, Healthy Habits for Life. We'll be talking about how to identify healthy habits for your body, and then learn how our habits are formed, and also look for ways to make healthy habits part of our lifestyle. And of course, some practical tips on creating and maintaining those healthy habits. So I hope you will join us for that next month. Again, thank you so much for your time today. Feel free to exit the webinar at this time. Again, thank you, Claudia, for your time today.
Thank you all.